There comes a time. There comes a time when it comes time to take responsibility without shame. We all make mistakes and have had times we are not proud of. We have embarrassments, we have regrets about stuff, and most of us take it pretty damn hard on ourselves if we're going to be honest. Sometimes we are brutally harsh towards ourselves. We beat ourselves to a pulp for all the things that we've done. We can turn self flagellation into a sport. Most of us are pretty good at beating ourselves up. We take things hard, really hard. And that can translate into a whole personality steeped by mistakes, but also that we build around these mistakes. And this is not just, I made a bad choice, but, what in the actual F is wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? I should know better. I'm a terrible person. I'll never change. You say to yourself in so many different ways that I'm no good, I'm worthless, and I'm irredeemable. I'm a defective person who is incapable of good things, of improvement, of growth, of love and light. If you've ever gone down that rabbit hole, well, this one's for you. Because today, we're talking about something that is absolutely essential to the recovery process. Responsibility without shame. And I want to make a distinction right from the get go. Responsibility says, this is part of me, and this is part of my story, but it doesn't define me. I choose to be different, and I choose to rise. I choose to change. Shame says, this is who I am. These are not the same. You can take complete responsibility for something you've done without turning yourself into a human punching bag. And in recovery, that distinction can change everything. Welcome back. I'm Mr. Fox. This is Sacred Fox Consulting. We're going to get into it. Responsibility isn't using yourself as a punching bag. One of the biggest misconceptions about responsibility is that you have to suffer long enough before you're allowed to move forward. And somehow, we believe that if we feel terrible enough about what we've done, that proves we're taking responsibility. Well, that's a start, but suffering isn't the same as responsibility. You can feel guilty forever. You can feel guilty for a while and never actually change your behavior or change your actions. You can hate yourself every morning you get up and still repeat the same patterns every night and every day. You can constantly punish yourself and never actually look at yourself deeply. You've been running around in circles chasing yourself this whole time. That's because shame often keeps the focus on you. You say things like, I'm horrible, I'm broken, I'm a failure. But see, responsibility asks different questions. It asks, what happened? What part was mine? And really, what am I going to do differently now? And that's a much more useful question than questions. Responsibility moves you towards action. Shame tends to keep you trapped in this identity. Shame can envelop your whole personality, and subconsciously, it infiltrates how you navigate your everyday life, whether you're aware of it or not. And I want to make a really important distinction between shame and guilt. These are not exactly the same. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. I am the mistake. Guilt can be useful, don't get me wrong. Guilt can tell you, hey, pay attention. You crossed a boundary. You hurt somebody. You need to make something right. You need to atone. That's information, but shame takes that information and turns it into a whole verdict about your entire being, your whole essence. You made a mistake, and suddenly your brain decides, I am a walking giant mistake. And that's where things get really dangerous. Because once you've decided you're fundamentally irredeemable, terrible, and all the rest, what motivation do you have to change? If you're already the monster, why bother becoming anything else? And this can be very dangerous at its worst because people stay stuck, and this can turn into resentment and loathing towards yourself, and that can become a prison that one doesn't want to escape from. People can become very comfortable in their shame. Responsibility gives you another option, though. It says, I did something I'm not proud of. I need to understand it. I need to repair what I can. I need to learn from it. And I need to behave differently. That's accountability. And accountability doesn't require self immolation, self destruction. No, no. And can we say it something else here? Stop confusing explanation with excuses. That's another important distinction. Understanding why you did something does not mean you're excusing it or putting it under the rug. Maybe you grew up around dysfunction. Maybe you grew up in chaos. Maybe you learned unhealthy coping mechanisms. Maybe nobody taught you boundaries. Maybe you were hurt. Maybe you were traumatized. Maybe you were afraid. Maybe you have complicated grief. Maybe you were trying to survive something emotionally. Those things can help explain your behavior, but explanation isn't absolution. You can say, I understand why I developed this pattern, and simultaneously also say, this pattern is hurting people. And it is my responsibility to change that, to alter that. Both things can be true. And that's integration, that's maturity. You don't have to choose between compassion and accountability. It turns out you need both. Because compassion without responsibility can become avoidance. But responsibility without compassion can become self-destruction. And recovery requires that nice middle ground. We need that middle ground. So here are some steps to have responsibility without making it shameful. And this is practical stuff. Here are 5 things that you can actually do when you've stepped in it. Step 1, name it and tame it. Say it out loud. Exactly what happened. Not, I'm bad, I'm horrible, I'm terrible. Instead, say, I lied. I lied. I crossed the boundary. I avoided something that I needed to address. I acted impulsively. I hurt somebody. I effed up. Say it as it is. The goal isn't to make you feel worse. The goal is to make the situation clear. You cannot take responsibility for something you refuse to accurately name. But you also don't need to get stuck in a story about about what the mistake supposedly means about who you are, all of you. Facts first, judgment later. And honestly, you don't need the judgment at all. Leave it out. Step 2, your identity is not your worst day. This is huge. You are not the sum total of your worst decision. You are also not entitled to define yourself entirely by your best decision. You're a human being capable of a whole wide gamut and spectrum of making choices. And some choices are great, they're good. Some are destructive, some are selfish, some lead to chaos, some are courageous, some are incredibly stupid. That's part of being human. So instead of saying, I'm a failure, try saying, I failed at something. Instead of, I'm toxic, try saying, I behaved in a way that was harmful. That language matters. Because if behavior can change, there is a path forward. And we need a path forward. Step 3, ask, what is mine? This is one of the most powerful questions in recovery. What is mine? Not what's everybody else's fault, and not how is everything my fault, but instead ask, what slice of this belongs to me? What portion of this is mine? Maybe you contributed 20%. Maybe you contributed 80%. Maybe you contributed damn near all of it. Whatever the answer is, own that. Own that portion. But don't take responsibility for things that aren't yours just because you're uncomfortable. That's not accountability. That's over responsibility. And some people actually use shame as a way to avoid responsibility. It sounds strange and paradoxical, but think about it. If I say everything is my fault, I'm terrible, I'm the worst, I may actually be avoiding the specific work of identifying what I did. Shame can become incredibly self soothing, self absorbent. Responsibility is a lot more humble, though. It says, this is what I did. This is what I didn't do. This is what I can change. Step 4, repair what you can. Responsibility isn't just saying, I'm sorry. Sometimes responsibility requires action. If you damage trust, rebuilding trust may take time. If you hurt somebody, they may need space. If you violated a boundary, you need to learn how to respect boundaries. If you created consequences, you may need to accept those consequences. And here's something that's really, really important. You don't get to control whether someone forgives you. And that's a hard one, isn't it? That's part of responsibility, though, too. You can apologize, you can make amends, you can change your behaviors, but you cannot demand that another person immediately trusts you and feels safe with you again. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is respect another person's boundary. And that is incredibly difficult. But recovery isn't always about getting the outcome that you want. Sometimes recovery is about becoming the kind of person who can handle an outcome you don't you don't want without returning to destructive behaviors. And step 5, build a different future. This is where responsibility becomes transformational. Don't just ask, how do I feel about what I did? Ask, what system do I need so I don't keep repeating these same patterns? Maybe you need boundaries. Maybe you need accountability. Maybe you need coaching. Maybe you need therapy. Maybe you need to stop putting yourself in certain situations, right? Is that not huge? Or surrounding yourself with certain people. Maybe you need healthier coping skills. Maybe you need to slow down before responding. Maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to develop a healthy regimen and daily practice. Maybe you need to recognize your triggers. Maybe you need to stop making promises and start creating structures. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: intentions are not the same thing as systems. You can sincerely intend to change and still repeat the same behaviors. Change requires effortful practice. So, don't turn consequences into shame. This one is incredibly important. Sometimes taking responsibility means accepting consequences. And accepting consequences doesn't mean believing you deserve to suffer forever. There is a difference between I have to face the consequences of my choices and I deserve to be persecuted and miserable forever. The first is responsibility. The second is shame. We don't like them, of course, but consequences can teach you. They can slow you down. They can force you to reconsider your choices, your decisions, your patterns. They can help create boundaries. They can reveal where you need to look, where you need to grow. But punishment doesn't automatically create transformation. Sometimes consequences simply create the environment in which transformation becomes possible. Your job is to use that information and that environment wisely. So here's a practical daily exercise for you. Here's something that you can try. At the end of the day, each day, take 5 minutes, and ask yourself these 4 questions. Number one, what did I do well today? Don't skip this. Responsibility isn't just looking for your failures and mistakes. Number two, where did I act out of alignment with the person I want to become? Be honest with yourself. No excuses, no BS, no theatrics, just honesty. Number three, what was mine to own? Identify your responsibility, not somebody else's, yours. Number four, what is one thing I can do differently tomorrow? Not 20 things, not 1,000, one. Because sustainable change usually happens through repeated small actions. You don't have to reinvent the wheel of your entire personality overnight. You need to practice becoming different, one decision and one choice at a time. Stop waiting to feel worthy. That's another thing. You are worthy right now. And here's where I want to get philosophically blunt for a moment. A lot of people unconsciously believe that once I become a better person, then I can forgive myself and then I'm worthy of forgiveness. But what if you have that order different? What if the order is different? What if self respect isn't something you earn by becoming better or perfect? What if self respect comes from being willing to tell the truth about yourself? The truth might be, I effed up. I screwed up badly. I hurt somebody. I made a selfish decision. I have patterns that I don't like. I still have a lot of work to do. And then I'm going to do the work. You see, that's dignity. Not perfection, not pretending, not avoiding, and certainly not denial. That's dignity. Here's something I want you to know. Responsibility is an act of empowerment. And here's the paradox. Shame feels powerful because it's intense. It feels serious. It feels like you're punishing yourself. But responsibility is actually more powerful because responsibility says I have influence over what happens next. I get to choose what I do next. Maybe you can't change yesterday. Maybe you can't undo what happened. Maybe you can't control how somebody else feels or if and when they forgive you. Maybe you can't erase the consequences, but you can control what you do next. You can start telling the truth. You can apologize. You can learn. You can establish boundaries. You can seek support. You can go to therapy. You can go to coaching. You can change your environment, who you're surrounded by. You can practice different behaviors every day. You can stop repeating the same story. That's where your power lives, and that's empowering. Not in pretending the past didn't happen, but in refusing to let the past dictate every decision you make going forward. So, if you're watching this and you're carrying something you're ashamed of, I want you to hear this. You don't have to lie to yourself, and you certainly don't have to minimize what happened. Shame is heavy. You don't have to pretend you didn't hurt somebody, and you don't have to call yourself worthless either. You can tell the truth. You can own your part. You can repair what you can. You can accept the consequences. You can learn. You can grow. You can change. Responsibility doesn't require you to loathe yourself and to hate yourself and to be absolutely miserable all the time. In fact, sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is stop wasting your energy punishing yourself and start using that energy to become different. So the next time you hear that voice saying, you're a terrible person, try answering it with this. Maybe I made a terrible, horrible choice. Now, what am I going to do about it? That's the question. Not, how bad should I feel? But, what does responsibility look like now? What can I do right now? That's recovery. That's growth. That's the work. And that's what Sacred Fox Consulting is all about. Not pretending we're perfect and we got all our shit together, and not pretending we've never messed up or screwed up, but learning how to walk into the fire of our own lives with enough honesty to say, this is mine. I did that. And enough compassion to say, and I can still become someone different and something different. If this message resonated with you today, subscribe, share this video with somebody who needs it, who needs to hear it, and leave a comment if you so please. What does responsibility without shame look like in your life? And until next time, own your life, own your story. Don't become imprisoned by it. Remember this, you are responsible for what you do next. That doesn't mean being perfect for what you do next. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you again next time. Hi, this is Sacred Fox Consulting. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please come back. I'm Mr. Fox, and it's a pleasure to have you in. Take care.